Hello, this is David McKay with McKay Photography Academy as well as Photo Enthusiast Network. And I'm bringing you a short video today on how to get around your Sony camera just for the basic settings as far as the shutter speed, the aperture, also called an f-stop, and your ISO. Now you may have a different model Sony than I have here on the screen. There are lots of different Sony models out there, but they all operate on pretty much the same premise on how you change these particular settings. As an example, if you take a look at the top of your camera, you're going to notice a mode dial. On that mode dial, you're going to see various items and letters, and that's going to depend on the Sony that you have. But for today's purposes and getting into manual settings, what we want you to do is we want you to change that mode dial over to the M. So you're going to go ahead and rotate that dial, put it on the M for manual in order to be able to change your settings. Now, from this upper view, you can also notice some other dials. We don't get into all of those in this video, but a few that I want to point out is this dial right here, this front dial, and this dial. This dial here is something that we'll talk about in later tutorials, as well as while we're out in the field or in class photographing and chatting with you in person. This, though, again, is known as exposure compensation, and for today's video, we want to focus on these dials right here. So your mode dial, switch to M, this dial, which you're going to operate with your thumb, and this forefront dial here, you're going to operate with your index finger. This dial right here on the front that we've been talking about simply does this. It changes your aperture. Okay, so go ahead and try that. Rotate that. Again, you have to be on manual. Make sure the camera's on and rotate that. And you're going to notice that the aperture and the f-stop is changing. Now you can see where it's changing on the back of your LCD. You can also look through your viewfinder and you should be able to see the settings at the lower part of the viewfinder in a digital readout. It's important to get used to looking through your viewfinder to see your settings so that when your camera is up to your eye, you can adjust quickly. But you can also use your LCD where you will see the aperture, the shutter, and the ISO readout, and again through the viewfinder. So this dial here, go ahead and rotate that. You're going to notice very simply it's going to change the aperture and the f-stop. And then this dial right here, not the one that was set for compensation, but this dial right here that you're going to use with your thumb, that one is going to change your shutter speed. Really simple on this system is your shutter speed and your aperture. Now, to change the ISO, again, super simple. You're going to look on the back of your camera, and again, you may have a different Sony. If you do not see the ISO here, but you see it as a button somewhere or a button on top, you can just depress that, and your ISO settings will show up, and you can rotate and scroll through them. On this particular camera, here is the ISO, and you're like, but I don't see a button. This little dial here that you can scroll through things is also a button. So sometimes people hit this accidentally when they're shooting, but you depress the little spot that you want to go ahead